Stellar Fundraising Auctions presents Inside the Industry, a special episode of Black Tie and Tails brought to you by our sponsor, Sojourn Ventures, featuring your host, Greg Quiroga, and special guest, Suzanne Tate. Welcome to this special episode of Black Tie and Tails, where we're going to go behind the scenes in the wonderful world of fundraising auctions with an industry insider whose industry plays an important role in fundraising auctions nationwide. I'm sitting with Suzanne Tate, Napa Vintner.
Hi, nice to meet you. Nice to be here. Yes. Yes, we're here in the wonderful Napa Valley right now. I am one of the proprietors of TATE Wine, along with my husband, David Tate.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. And also the newest member of the fundraising auction team at Stellar Fundraising Auctions. So,
absolutely.
So there's a little bit of a hidden agenda here, but not too hidden. So I always appreciate the opportunity to learn from vintners on how best to engage them from a fundraising perspective. And I look forward to diving into that in detail with you as we kind of go through today. But first, I wanted to start at the top. You and your husband are, I understand, married couples as a team, right? So you and your husband are a team in the world of winemaking. What got you started?
Yeah, it's kind of funny how one thing just led to another. I grew up in Texas, very far from the wine industry.
Texas.
Not super close to the wine industry. And, our career counselors in high school were not telling us about jobs in the wine industry.
I know that feeling.
I ended up doing a degree in finance in Austin and got out into Hook 'em Horns, absolutely. And got out into the finance world in a time where it wasn't really great to be a new hire. Things were really pumping the brakes. Enron had just happened. And I was on a run one day, a long run, and decided that maybe I would put that on pause. And while I was on that run, I was trying to figure out what I would love to do for maybe a year while I had my own self-imposed hiatus from finance. And of course, I would go back to finance. Of course I would. And I was thinking about things I loved. And I love food. I mean, who doesn't? But I really, really love food. So that's when I decided to enroll in culinary school. Made the move out to the West Coast, did my culinary degree, and it was when I discovered that there's this industry behind wine. I think for up until that point, most of my life, I thought, wine was this product that ended up on a table. And being out here on the West Coast really pulled back the curtains and showed that there was a whole industry, and there are people who make it and the people who make a living doing this, and I fell in love with it. I moved back to Texas, got into fine wine import and distribution, so I got to really learn the business side of wine. And it was through that job that I met my husband. He's been a winemaker now for 26 years.
Okay.
But he was visiting Texas to host clients and to do some wine dinners. And I was tasked with driving this winemaker around Texas. And we kind of hit it off. And very shortly thereafter, he made it pretty clear that he was not moving to Houston, Texas. Asked me what I thought about St. Helena.
Okay.
I wrapped it up real quick in Texas and moved out here, and the rest is a little bit of history. So I moved out here in 2010, and we were able to start our own small label, TATE Wines, in 2011. Make only 1,000 cases total, so it's
okay.
It's
and for the uninitiated, 1,000 cases. That's going to be about 1,500 bottles, and that's
15,000.
15,000. See,
15,000.
I'm an auctioneer, but I can't do math.
Yeah.
15,000 bottles of wine a year. And do you source your grapes or grow your grapes, or both?
We do source our grapes, but we have a really interesting process in how we select those vineyards. We very much look for people like ourselves, small families, people who have an acre or 2 acres. They've been maybe selling off to a larger corporation. That, Dave and I find, is really the right mix for what we're trying to do, because we can come into an acre or 2 acres, really bring up the viticulture program, and then essentially make these wines out of places that really haven't been single vineyarded here in the Napa Valley. Another thing that we love and we find is that we find these vineyards where the owner lives on property. And that's so important, because when the grapes are your backyard, guess what? You're going to treat them in a way that's very holistic and even goes further than anything like organic or biodynamic.
And no offense to the large grape growing operations, but there's a big difference when somebody's got 15,000 acres versus making 15,000 bottles. So how many different growers do you work with?
Right now, we work with 4 different growers.
Okay, and that's a small number. That's
it's
very
a small
intimate.
number. It's very intimate, and that's always been the design of our winery. And when we started out, we decided we wanted to be small.
Okay.
There wasn't a huge growth trajectory, but we wanted something small. We wanted it definitely to sustain what we love to do, is to get out there and sell wine and to connect with people, but not so large that we ever lost touch of what we love the most, which is living out here in the Napa Valley and being around our community out here.
Which is great. And once the wine is in the bottle and ready to sell, how much of that goes out to retailers? How much of that goes out to consumers? And how much are you then left with charities clamoring for?
Right. I mean, that's the thing. And it's a very just strategic plan for us.
Okay.
And for us, a lot of that planning starts very, very early. And so we know that
finance at work.
Yes. The finance side at work.
Take the woman out of finance, but you take the finance out of the woman.
No. And so we do sell direct about 50%. The rest of that wine, the other 50%, plus some, 1% to 2% is what we usually keep aside for our charity work.
Okay.
And everybody's mix is different. But why I like to say that is those decisions are made very early on. And this is something that, we'll get to later, but it is nice for charities to take into consideration is that timeline that they're always asking and making the ask. But 50% here sold direct to consumer or through our mailing list. And then the other 50% goes into distribution.
Got it.
Which goes to retailers and country clubs. And then also part of that is export as well.
Got it.
Yeah.
And let's dive right into, sorry, I'm going to back up just a second because you said that I heard 1% of the direct to consumer is what you keep back for charity participation.
Typically, and it depends on the year. Yeah.
That's 7,500. That's basically like a few hundred bottles are held in reserve for fundraising events.
Exactly.
And why do you participate in fundraising events? Like what do you get out of it?
Well, on the very kind of front end, I mean, we're part of a community. We have causes that are near and dear to us. So it is wonderful for us, primarily to be able to contribute in a way that maybe other people couldn't. So, we, in our planning annually, know which charities really affect our lives. And that's a lot local. We also have a 5-year-old. So of course, children's charities, very big for us.
And your kids' school, which will come into play later.
And our kids' school, absolutely. So that's the primary reason that we get into, or that we've been into auctions, is that sense of altruism. Secondarily is that we do interact with customers who also we share deep connections with, and they have their causes, and we love to support our friends and our customers and these people that we have relationships as well with. And then thirdly, down on the list is connection, is the community that's built around auctions and events like this is fantastic for us to build and cultivate new connections to consumers. Also, it allows us to connect to our fellow vintners, and then also to introduce us to new markets. So that's one of the reasons that we do it as well.
So it's there's a form of altruism, connection, and marketing, essentially.
Absolutely.
Which I've heard before, but I appreciate you underscoring that remains the truth for vintners. So you founded TATE Wine in 2011.
2011, yes.
And so in the last 13, 14 years, how many auctions have you participated in from the vintner side? Or just like on average, how many do you think you do a year?
On average a year, I would say that we do between 7 to 10.
Okay.
Four of those usually being in person.
Okay.
Where we're there with a lot, a live lot or a silent lot, or we're there pouring. And then the others are lots we put together, we'll donate to, we'll donate a case here or there, a tasting opportunity, something like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So 7 to 10 auctions a year. How many solicitations do you think you get a week or a day. I mean, I'm laughing
Holy
because
smokes, no,
as we were setting up to shoot today, Suzanne was like, I got another solicitation.
I got another solicitation.
And it was a Dear Jane, right?
It was a Dear Jane, just no, yeah.
And we'll get to that in a second, too.
We'll get to that in a second as well, yes. But I would say at a minimum, I probably get one a week.
Okay.
And then in some, in some seasons, it's definitely more. We know what our auction seasons are when people are doing their charities. So in the spring, there's a lot of last minute kind of requests that we get.
Of course.
So it is working through those. But some of the bigger ones, you'll see them, time it out a little bit better. And we get those. Summer's slow for us for requests, but come springtime, everybody's asking.
Yes. And that just kind of coincides with the nature of planning and the cyclical nature of the fundraising world. Nobody wants to be planning their fundraising auction between November and January.
Right. No, not at all.
And that's when you should be doing it.
That's when you should be, yes.
Doing it. So how do you weed through all of those asks? Like, how do you pick the ones? I mean, you already said ones that you kind of alluded to it, but you get that many requests, like one a week at least. That's 50 something requests. You only do 10 auctions. That's easy math, right? So how do you wade through all of that and sort through? And has there ever been a cold call that came in, you're like, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And I love that you said call, because I love it when it's a phone call.
Okay.
So we like call. Yes. We, like so many vintners, are running a business. And auctions are a strategic part of our business, which means it goes into the business plan. And so when we sit down, before the start of our fiscal year, we do determine how much we have to give, where kind of our top line giving is. And then we do always give ourselves a little bit of leeway. And so many vintners do this as well. So it's good to understand. That's when I said, timing wise makes a big difference. So is when I start looking through requests that haven't come in that we weren't planning for, because many are planned for, that we know we've donated to in the past, that we'd love to give to, in the future, something that's annual for us. So we have that already built in, and then we have our little bit of leeway. So when these requests do come in, there are a few things that I do look at. One is it just a blanket email that's come in? And those, unfortunately, usually do get set to the side. There's certain wording that is kind of a key player where they'll kind of get shuttled off. Oh, this will be an amazing marketing opportunity for you and your winery. And that's usually, unless it comes with some very specific marketing that's going to be on the back end, that's usually kind of a red flag for us, that maybe it's someone that's just trying to kind of pull you in. And then also requests that don't meet the needs or of our winery. And what I mean by that is someone who hasn't done their research. Okay. Someone who will ask for, or who hasn't looked at the price point of our wines or the types of wines that we produce. And, I've gotten this where we produce mostly red wines, Cabernet Sauvignons, and people who are asking for case donations for a ladies' luncheon. Well, maybe Mount Vintner Cabernet Sauvignon. Yeah. Maybe you didn't do your research, and that's probably not what you want for your ladies' luncheon there. On the reverse side, people who don't give options. So it's a blanket request. Like I said, no knowledge of our winery, of who we are, or what our marketing needs might be on the back end. Usually those get pushed off first. And then after that, what we're looking for is something that aligns with our needs. So the letters that I love, or calls that I love the most, are, "Hi, Suzanne, I've been a club member for a while. Love your Merlot. We have this event coming up. It's for our child. I know we chatted about them at this point, or it's for, this, a pet rescue. We know that you love animals as well. We were hoping that you might be able to donate. And here are some ways that you can."
Got it. So they offer options of participation.
We need pouring wines. Would you be able to maybe give us a case of either red or white that we could pour? Or if that doesn't work? Would you be able to put together a tasting opportunity at the winery where you could host 4 to 6 people? Or even something more special, could you do a barrel sample? So different levels, and
Making
that
all
allows
the asks at once, though.
once.
Not coming back like, oh, you said no. Well, would you say yes to this?
Right. And here are the opportunities that we have in a way that we could work you into our charity. We would love to give you a mention in the book, and also there'll be some great signage as well.
And in terms of in-person participation,
yes,
what is it that you're looking to participate in when you go do an event? And that's a lot of in-persons in a row, but when you're there, what are you looking to do at an in-person event?
At an event, I want to, one, meet as many people as possible that are either current or possible future customers of ours.
Okay.
And to build relationships.
Okay.
The best events for us are the ones where we are allowed to build and able to build those relationships.
And you build those relationships through pouring for people?
People, a seat at a table with guests if there's a physical dinner or an auction, live auction.
Sure.
So getting to really build relationships. We're not exactly a winery where you can see a name and then have that recognition. It's about that relationship and getting someone to come out to see you. So it's any of those times where you get to sit and have conversation, pour for people, have them taste your wine, invite them back to your property as well.
If you're going to a destination wine auction, like traveling somewhere like Kansas City, for example.
Yes.
Are the vintner dinners the night before? Lots of wine auctions have a vintner dinner the night before the auction itself. How do you view the vintner dinners?
I view those as a huge draw for vintners. If you're offered more than one opportunity to connect with guests, and especially an opportunity where there might be a direct sales component to it, wineries tend to love this, is an opportunity that, yes, we love the altruism, we love being able to connect with people. A lot of those people in the room, they're still going to buy the auction lots. They're going to go for those silent lots as well, but to give them an option to also buy wine directly, I think benefits everybody all around. It allows the vintner to recoup some of what they probably cost time-wise and money-wise to go to that event, but then also to build connections. And so the next year that you're there, it only builds up that event even more, and it builds more of a personal connection between the charity, the winery, and the customer that's going to be there.
And it's one thing to get people to sign up on your mailing list. It's another thing to get people to actually buy your wines the night of a vintner dinner.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. So the auctions that we really tend to look for are the ones that give us those opportunities. Are the ones that build a little bit of camaraderie as well. The ones that build outside events for vintners tend to be the ones that we really find ourselves going back to over and over again. And that is everything from, yes, the consumer events the night before, or, consumer walk-around tastings that some put together, but then also to allow us to build our vintner community. So some will have opportunities that allow, the vintners to have a lunch together or do a round of golf together or something like that. And, when you're away from home, if you're not in front of customers, to be able to build relationships with your fellow vintners and the people hosting the auction possibly is always an added benefit.
And I also like it when they give you a unique taste of the culture of the area in which they're doing the event.
Absolutely. Don't have me come out to Kansas City and not give me barbecue. Goodness, yes.
And they actually do the Kansas City Shuttle Cork Wine Auction. Shout out, Shuttle Cork Wine Auction. They do shuttle pork as a vintner's lunch, where you go to a local barbecue joint, Jack Stacks. Shout out Jack Stacks. Go to Jack Stacks and have a huge catered barbecue feast for all the vintners and major donors. And again, it's another opportunity for the vintners to hang out, and also for, get a little sponsor love action as well.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So vintner dinners are a draw, right?
Yes.
That's a plus for being asked. And sometimes that runs counterintuitive. I know so many wine auctions that are like, oh, we already ask so much of our vintners. And I'm like, this isn't a big ask. How many bottles of wine do you pour per table at a Vintner dinner?
At a Vintner dinner, I mean, we usually allocate about a bottle a person.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, and there's going to be a little bit sometimes.
There's going to be some leftovers, hopefully.
You should see some of the parties we get to go to. But usually we allocate, about 3/4 of a bottle to a bottle per person.
Okay, so a 40-person Vintner dinner is still going to be 3+ cases of wine.
It is. And when it gets kind of up in those numbers, you do ask for a little bit of an ask kind of on the back end. But the hope is with a Vintner dinner like that you are given the direct sales opportunity.
Yes.
And we're able to convert some of those bottles into sales. And not only that, yes, the sale in person, but once you have someone on your list and they're already a customer, it's building that long-term relationship with them. And that's where we get to take over and do what we do best.
And I would think for the charities, that's what works best as well.
It does.
Once the charities donors are building relationships with vintners, that means that those donors have a different emotional investment in the event and the organization, and then get to build memories around the organization. So I'm presuming if you're donating an auction lot, what are the varying levels of auction lot you donate to a travel event? So you're traveling somewhere, you're going to go to a Vintner dinner. The next night, there's going to be a wine auction. It's going to be somebody like me on stage for anywhere from 30 to 90 plus minutes. Shout out Alabama. What type of auction lot are you donating? What's your ideal auction lot in terms of serving both the charity and TATE Wine?
So my ideal, if I'm traveling, is an opportunity to have people come visit us back in the Napa Valley.
Okay.
And one of my favorite ways to do that, and some auctions do a really great job at well beforehand, getting that Vintner community connected so that we can build a lot with maybe 3 or 4 different wineries. So here are my favorite ones is, yes, we'll get them, hooked at, say, in Kansas City or Atlanta or somewhere like that. But now 3 or 4 wineries have gotten together. We put together a lot. It's 2 days of tasting plus a hotel stay plus, a car. And now we get to take that customer, bring them back and give them our experience as well. And that's my favorite, is when I not only get to work with my fellow vintners and build that, but then also build a really unique lot that someone may not be able to put together on their own, or would not be able to put together on their own.
And access and relationships are the 2 best things we can have to sell on stage for a fundraising auction. And I think that there is no better example of relationships than vintners.
Yes.
As long as I've been doing fundraising auctions, vintners have been the rock stars of many auctions.
Absolutely.
What do you think are 3 things every charity should do when they reach out to a winery and are soliciting for an auction lot?
Number 1, please give us time.
And you mean lead time before the event?
Lead time before the event. Like I said,
what's a good minimum lead time?
If it's a travel auction, 6 months.
Okay.
6 months. We're building out. I mean, I've already started building out my calendar just to give you a bit of a time frame here. We're here at the end of February, and I've got events already booked for September and October.
Wow. Okay.
So for me, it's that lead time. I want to be able to say yes, and I want to be able to connect with people. But if it's, Suzanne, we've got an event in 6 weeks, can you please? Usually it's going to be a no, and usually it's not going to be the best experience for the customers at your auction or us if we're trying to logistically get wine on time and set things up. Because most of the time, also for me, if it's an auction that I'm traveling for, there's a couple of days around there that I may want to build in some market work and work with my distributor or see other customers. So that all takes time. So number 1, time would be great.
Okay.
Number 2, make the request meet the winery where they are.
Okay.
So understand that winery, understand their size, and understand what an appropriate ask is. And number 3, make it make sense, make it personal, make me understand why this charity matters. And like I said, when you pick up the phone and call, or when it's an email, it needs to say, "Hey Suzanne," or "Hi Suzanne,"
right?
Not "To whom it may concern."
Dear TATE Wine.
Dear TATE Wine. Yes. So make it personal to us. These are charities that affect people, and we want to feel that. We want to understand what we're giving, part of our 1,000 cases to. Yeah.
And for the non-literate like myself, 15,000 sounds like a lot of bottles. But It's a small operation. I mean, I passed Mondavi on the way in. They're renovating, going to
Right.
reopen soon. And Mondavi's, how many hundreds?
Couple 100,000 cases?
Yeah.
Yo, yeah.
Yeah. Like, they're ginormous.
Right.
So if you're going to cold call Mondavi.
Yeah, cold call them, and like I said, build the request. If you're going to, solicit one of the larger wineries, yes, they do donate more and they have a little bit more leeway, and maybe tailor the request for serving wine or the bigger ask to someone like that. But wineries at every level can participate and do want to. We just have to make it make sense with not only our business, but also kind of our bigger worldview.
And one of the best ways to get in with a winery is to join their club, buy their wine, get to know them before you make the ask.
Yes.
What are the cardinal sins that you see nonprofits commit? Or what are the three things that nonprofits should avoid when soliciting a winery?
Right. Number one, please never ask for a winemaker appearance in September or October. You have no idea how many times we say, can we get a winemaker in, and when's the event? Oh, it's October 2nd. Absolutely not. That's yes.
And that's because?
It's harvest. We are never more than, 60 miles from the winery if you're a winemaker during that period of time. So, understand the nature of our schedules as well. So that is a fun one, but you wouldn't believe how many times I do see that. So don't ask for a winemaker, please, during harvest. Number two, not knowing the logistics of the event. And that is, it takes a lot for wine to get from point A to point B.
Got it.
And when there's no clear logistical plan on who's receiving, when we're shipping, if your event is in June or July, you probably need to think about receiving that wine in April or May, because our shipping costs, if we're shipping you wine, double to ship during the summer.
Oh, interesting. Because
of the heat, and because you have to heat protect it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So a lot of times the logistics of how the wine arrives don't get thought out ahead of time. And there's a lot of busy work on our end that sometimes happens about who's picking up, who's receiving, what time of year is it being received, where is it being held. All of those things need to be taken into consideration before soliciting your wineries, so that a lot of that load is taken off of us.
Got it. So know the time of year. I'm trying to remember and summarize the cardinal sins.
Oh, sorry. Don't ask for a winemaker.
Don't ask for a winemaker,
yes.
especially in September or October. Know the time of year and the logistics. Know the logistics.
Right.
What was the third? I forgot the third.
Well, we haven't gotten to the third yet.
Okay, good. It's not my short-term memory that's failing here.
Not at all. Obviously, we talked about timing and length of time and the ask. And then also making too big of a request.
Okay.
I think is a pretty big cardinal sin. If you are hosting a wine auction and it is peak season for you and you don't have a room block for your vintners and you're asking for them to purchase tickets and also then maybe purchase a hotel room on top of that. So understanding what your event costs for a vintner, I think is something that isn't thought through a lot.
Okay.
It's great to get the request, but sometimes I think the requests from auctions come through and you go, okay, wait, the flight, my time away from the winery, the hotel, maybe someone hasn't done something to maybe help with those costs. And I think knowing your auction, but then also knowing what goes into being at your auction for someone who's not local is...
I'm seeing a trend in wine auctions towards, at the very least, providing hotel stays for their vintners. And I've even encountered a few wine auctions that cover their vintners' travel to get to those. And I'm guessing those wine auctions are going to be more popular with vintners, provided there's a market there, provided there's a cause there, provided all the other things are equal. I think it's going to be I'm imagining that the wine auctions that are helping defray those costs are going to be the ones that get more vintners.
They get more vintners, and they get these... you're never going to see a Reddit subthread on, what vintners and what auctions we love, but... is
there an r/vintner?
Oh, don't look. No. This is a small community. The
Okay.
Vintner community is small, and we do talk about where we've been traveling and the auctions that we've been participating in, and the auctions that do take care of their vintners and offer a great cause and, are all around well thought out, well planned, do get a lot of really great chatter. And we hear about them in this community. And hey, you should try this auction. It's really, really great.
Something you said about logistics and planning and timing and knowing and understanding made me think for the first time since starting in this industry that something that would be really crucial for any would-be wine auction is to have somebody in the wine industry on their committee.
Absolutely.
Or somebody familiar with the wine industry on their committee, or to at least have some sort of documentation about the logistics to pass forward. Because I think about most of the volunteers who get involved with fundraising auctions. You got your schools, you got your parents, right? And they get thrust into this whole fundraising world, and suddenly they're like, "Oh, I know vintners," and they're calling vintners, but that unless they're like you and happen to be both a parent and a vintner, they don't understand the framework of the right or wrong ask. But then you start trying to build a larger wine auction. If you're suddenly chairing or as a development staff running a larger wine auction, I think that type of institutional knowledge being able to either be passed forward or exist would be really important.
Oh, hugely important. And you see the ones that do have that and do rely on their vintner community, or even if you're a small local charity, someone probably knows someone in distribution or on the retail side, or who has an understanding a bit more about the world of wine. Because let's be honest, I mean, in charity auctions and auctions in general, wine, spirits do play a pretty key role, not only in some of the lots, but and also, the dinners and the events that we produce. And so having someone that understands that can be really critical to the success of cultivating good relationships with the vintners going forward.
And I've said, you said it, part of these dinners, I've joked for a while now that wine is the lubricant of my job.
Yes.
it primes that pump and keeps those donations coming.
It does. And, when you're looking to get top donations somewhere and you're, high bidders and all of this, you have to understand that the person that's putting down a $25,000 bid or, a $50,000 bid, they probably know wine a little bit too.
Yeah.
So you want to make your asks kind of appropriate with who you have in the room and what you're pouring, what you're serving. People know. People who taste wine regularly and buy wine regularly, they know. So understanding it all around has a huge impact on that success.
The first wine auction I ever did, or one of the first wine auctions I did, was in Labor Day weekend of 2004, and it was the Sonoma Harvest Wine Auction, and they did a huge picnic on Saturday that was like 40 or 50 lots, and then they did a big wine auction on Sunday that was another 70-something lots. Wow. And the event chair that year, Andy Blue, who used to be a food and wine celebrity locally. He was sitting close enough to the stage that he and his friends were having conversations and I could hear them. And I'm trying to I was told that everything sold at this auction. I had no idea what I was doing. So I was just trying to sell. And at one point, one of Andy's friends leans over to him and he says, "Hey, Andy, you think the kid knows there's wine in these bottles?" I've since learned a little bit. This is like the question that wasn't on the list, but is there a memorable auction lot? Like, is there an auction lot that sticks out, either that you donated or that you've seen donated, that you're like, oh, that was interesting, or that was fun, or that was exciting?
I have to say, what I've seen a lot. I've seen, cruises on the bay with the winemaker as your sommelier for the night, pouring and opening bottles for you. I'm in. Yeah, I'm right. I've seen ones out here where you get a personal chef and the winery maybe has a kitchen garden and you get to pick the produce and then he will make a meal, and pair it with the wine for you. And everything is simple.
Food and vine to table.
Oh, absolutely. And make your own cuvee, which is really fun. So you get an afternoon with a winemaker and you get blending lots and you get to make a 12-bottle case of your own that no one else will ever have, that gets bottled up just for you. And you get to design a label yourself. So I've seen, a little bit of everything.
Awesome.
Yep.
So you've been around fundraising auctions aplenty for 14 years.
Yes.
And what made you decide suddenly to cross the divide and get on stage at a fundraising auction?
I love that you say decision.
Like it was conscious.
Like it was a conscious decision. No, I, as was mentioned, have a 5-year-old, and his preschool was having a charity auction last year, and very last minute, our auctioneer was not able to be there and be on stage. And I said, well, I love being in front of people. I love hosting wine dinners, and I love, bringing a crowd in. And it's what I do. I host maybe 40 to 50 wine dinners a year. It's not anything big for me to be up on a stage and chatting with groups sometimes as big as 100, 150.
Sure.
And I said, well, I put my hand up. I said, well, got this finance degree. I can probably count in succession, right? Like out loud in front of a crowd. So I put my hand up and, volunteered that I would do our 10 lot auction.
Sure.
And I loved it.
Great.
I messed up only once on the numbers.
Okay.
but had a really amazing time up there and realized the impact that someone engaging can have when you're in front of a crowd, and the difference between, raising that extra $10,000 sometimes for a small auction has a huge impact on what that does on the back end. And I was hooked. I was absolutely hooked. So
awesome.
I started digging into it and found your organization.
Great.
Through word of mouth, from friends who've worked with you with charities in San Francisco. And I think the rest is history, and hopefully a very long future ahead.
We're at the prologue.
We're at the prologue of it.
Yes. And I think one of the things I'm really excited about is the wealth of knowledge you bring about being on the Vintner side of things. Obviously, this whole conversation is based on that. But how do you think that knowledge how do you think that knowledge empowers you to help charities do better?
I think it allows me to really give charities the right information and allow them to make requests in a way that's maybe not so broad, but a lot more direct, in a way that'll have a much bigger impact on the charity. It allows me also to help them write their lots. I think sometimes, especially with wine lots, a lot's lost in the detail and how special some of these lots are that come in. And I've seen it myself. I've seen booklets. I've seen auctioneers stand up and talk about lots, and I'm going, oh my goodness, this is so much more special. You could totally sell up this point or that point. And for me, I think I bring some of that knowledge on how to really turn a lot that comes in into something that can really turn into really great lot for the charity once it's put forth to the broom.
Fantastic. And I know that you have auction coming up with us very soon. Like, what are you most excited about getting back on stage?
I am most excited about, there is something about that initial energy that you get right there before it all kicks off, where there's just nothing but potential, and you're a key part of that potential. And there's something so amazing about that feeling, and knowing you're going to have a huge impact on this first auction that I'm doing is for children, and something that means so much to me. So to know that I have the potential to make an impact for a lot of kids is so exciting.
Excellent.
Yeah.
I think that's all the questions I can come up with. Is there anything you want me to any points we didn't cover that you'd like to?
On the outset, no, I don't think so. Just know that the Vintner community maybe looks very insular from the outside, but we are people with causes and who do want to help. And we understand that that's part of our industry. So pick up the phone, call us. We'd love to chat. Come buy some wine too.
Great advice. Thanks so much for joining me, Suzanne.
Absolutely.
I really appreciate it. And thanks all of you for joining us for this conversation as well. As always, you can find all of this on our YouTube channel or on Spotify, Google, Apple, wherever you get your podcast normally, or you can find it on our website, stellarsf.com, or our other website, blacktieandtails.com, because I just love buying URLs. And of course, you can find more information about Suzanne on our website at stellarsf.com. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Cool. That's great.
Awesome.